Nathan Favreau wrote into us and said, hey, CDC, in regards to your thoughts that Game Pass may end up on PlayStation, if that were to happen, what scenario would make that possible? I play out all the possible ways that can happen, and everything points at Sony's pride preventing it from ever happening. Now, it's just something I say. I don't know how the boys feel about it. I want to throw it over to them. I'll start with you, Dustin. I'm just curious, if you think this can happen, how do you see it happening? How does my theory come to fruition? Let's answer it in two ways. Do you agree with the theory? And if you do, how do you see it sprouting?
I do not agree with the theory because the only way I see it happening is that there are no negatives for Sony. Like it would have to be an extremely gimped version of it that only has Xbox first and second party games, stuff that's not available for sale in the PlayStation Store, because Sony makes an incredible amount of money, just like Valve or Microsoft or whoever. They make so much money from that 30% cut. So if you introduce a subscription service that you're not the one that's making the money off of it, why would you do that? You look at examples like The Show. Well, maybe not The Show. The Show's not a good example just because that's their game. I mean, it still does apply, but let's like Outriders. Sony made a ton of money on Outriders, even though it was available on Game Pass, because there were so many people that only have a PlayStation and they wanted to play that game. So they bought it the old fashioned way. They purchased it for money. So
wow.
I just don't think there's any reality where Xbox would want to make that version of Game Pass. So I don't think it's happening.
All right. Yeah. Interesting. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's possible either. I just don't see Sony like being okay with it. This is the same company that doesn't let crossplay on their platform unless like they pay, like they're very stingy with the way that they cooperate with other entities, and it's very strict. They're very buttoned down. They're very much like, I just don't see a situation where like a subscription service from a competitor ends up on their platform in such a way that it is tantalizing to the consumer. Like I would like they would. I agree with Dustin. I think whatever Game Pass ends up on PlayStation would have to be something almost like, yeah, you could use this piece of shit if you want. You could play like Peggle or something, and like it's like the only game on PlayStation Game Pass is like Peggle 2 or something, and it's just so they can compare it. And you could be like, look at PlayStation Now, huh? Look at all this, look at all this, and look at Game Pass with Peggle.
Yeah, that's
and like I really do feel like it's like a situation with that. It's like that's the only situation where they would allow it, and I don't foresee that being something that Microsoft would want to do, especially when they're just kind of they're doing well already as is, and there's rumors of this streaming box now that they're working on.
Yeah, which would be interesting, and that's obviously the next. That would really take it directly to PS Now. At this point, and why I feel like there's got to be, or not got to be, maybe something to this Netflix rumor, but we'll see. I'm surprised by your guys. I don't know, lack of imagination on this. I feel like.
Well, can you imagine? What's your scenario that this happens?
Well, I have to structure it by saying that I think, because I disagree with what Nathan says here, where he says Sony's pride prevents it from happening, or would, like in all of the ways he games it out in his mind. I feel like Sony gets the ultimate pride boost by getting Game Pass. I think that like if they got a Game Pass that made sense for them, they'd be like, "Fuck yeah, we won, like we have it on our system now. We get a cut of it. It's over." I feel like that would almost be like a game altering situation, which is why I think Microsoft would be the one. Ironically, I think less interested in doing it the way I see it, which is a very boutique first and second party only version that costs like $20 a month. And I think Sony would be confident in it because they can say like, yeah, you get Halo now and you get Gears and you get Forza, and our games are still better and they're still on our console. I mean, because I think that like if you compare and contrast all of this stuff, their stuff is still better. This is what I keep saying about PlayStation Plus Collection and why I think it could be leveraged in an interesting way, but I think people want volume more. So it's not that I disagree with what you guys are saying. I just think I'm seeing it from the perspective of Sony looking at it as a massive win and how because you're right, Chris, they are very incalcitrant with working with other entities. There's no doubt, but it's different when you have a key to the fucking kingdom, basically, of one of your competitors. It's not like someone saying, I want crossplay on my fucking shooter. It's Microsoft saying, hey guys, do you want a tailor-made PlayStation 5 version of Game Pass? Because we can all win. And I think that's possible. I don't think it's going to happen like anytime soon. I think it's the mid 2020s or something like that. But
yeah,
I think that satiates the demand almost of every player, right? Because Microsoft gets Game Pass on the most popular gaming platform. Maybe it won't be at that time. And Sony dominates hardware. Now they can say, like, there's literally no reason for you to ever buy an Xbox. Why the fuck would you ever buy an Xbox? And that would draw people into the PlayStation Network. So I don't know. I mean, it's obviously very complicated, but I have imagination here on this one, boys.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if there's no point in buying an Xbox, why would Microsoft do it?
Well, they're already. I would already argue that they are doing that. They already.
I don't necessarily. I don't think I necessarily agree. I think because the Game Pass offering on console is a lot more robust than it is on PC, and I think that's really the draw. Is that, like, the Game Pass on console is hilariously, like, huge compared to, like, because I've checked it out on both, like, console and PC, and, like, yeah, PC has, like, the main first party, but a lot of the third party stuff is, like, you see, like, this graph that they come out with every now and again where it's like, this is coming to Game Pass, and then, like, later on, like a couple months later, it's like, oh, this same game's coming to Game Pass again, but it's Game Pass PC, and it's like they're not exactly the same as far as, like, the selection goes. And also just I don't know, I think I know what you're saying in the sense that, like, oh, stuff's available on PC, so, like, why would you? Or, like, that's valid, but I still think there are some benefits to the console that exist now that wouldn't if that was the case. It might not be, like, a massive purchasing decision. It might not be, like, a massive percentage of the reason why people buy Xboxes. I think it's mostly just because they're available and people like consoles, and, whenever they're already in the ecosystem or they're interested in trying stuff. But I don't know. I can't imagine Microsoft sinking money on this much hardware only to then toss the main reasons why that hardware is so tantalizing to the direct competitor. Unless their direct competitor isn't PlayStation, which is, like, argued. You can argue that. Like, there's a bunch of articles saying, like, hey, it's like Xbox is competing with Google and Amazon and all these other things now more than they are with PlayStation. That could be a potential future, but I don't know. Would I like to see Halo on PlayStation? Yeah, absolutely. But I just have a hard time imagining, like, how that pitch would be brought up.
It's the conundrum, I think, is the conundrum's interesting because Microsoft's kind of put themselves in this situation where being the first to do something like a subscription model at scale like they're doing means that it comes with certain sacrifices. And I think that they have to make a decision. I think they've already made the decision, which was my point, but they have to make a decision what's more important to them, subscribers or hardware. I don't think you can have it both ways ultimately, because it reminds me a lot of Netflix when they were getting in the streaming. Like, in that mindset, the first thing they should have done is gone after, like, Roku and be like, we got to tie you up and get Netflix on Roku. But what they said was, like, we don't give a fuck what you run Netflix on. Like, we are a subscription service. And if Microsoft wants to embrace that, then I think it doesn't conflict with either company's end goal. And I think Sony would never want to sacrifice its hardware. I think Microsoft will be thrilled to sacrifice its hardware if it meant that they had 100 million subscribers.
But then the interesting thing about this is, like, then we'll just have a console space that just has one console, basically, because the Switch isn't the Switch is a portable as far as I'm concerned. Like, it's not really, like, people, like, I play it on my TV and all that, but, like, I don't really even view it as, like, a console at this point. It's like, this is a Smash Brothers machine. And so we'll be entering this weird kind of ecosystem where it's just PlayStation then. And I don't know. I don't know if I feel comfortable with PlayStation feeling like they're on top and actually being on top to the point where they're, like, as, arrogant as they have been when they weren't even, like that worries me. Like the arrogance of these companies, if they can get to that point, worries me. So I would just in general err against it. But I see what you're saying. I see the reasoning behind it. But
well, I'll give you the last word on that, and we'll just see how it develops. I mean, we're not going to have anything more to say about it for a while.